Last time on the WizardCast.
Hey, Brian, are you feeling okay?
Yeah, I guess I'm fine.
You sure? You're looking a bit pale.
You know, I'm just feeling a bit drained. I woke up this morning with this really sore neck. I don't think I slept very well. You know, plus I got this weird burn on my finger.
What? How did that happen?
Well, I went to church on Sunday and some joker put like something acidic or something in the holy water. I went to go cross myself and I ended up with this.
Well, that sucks. Are you going to be able to get some sleep tonight, you think?
I'm hoping to sleep like the dead, but, you know, I only seem to feel really tired during the day no matter what. Man, I'm thirsty.
You know, Brian, actually, looking at the script, this is funny and all considering our last episode, but why am I the one asking about your neck pain? I mean, plot lines considered, shouldn't I know?
Well, there's only two of us, and I spent all our budgets on t-shirts for Midwest Streaming, now available at thewizardnews.com, so I couldn't afford any additional talent.
Talent.
I'm Brian Kwong.
And I'm Mark Ross.
We're Salesforce experts that love talking about technology and Salesforce.
We also love humor. Doesn't mean we're actually good at it.
In the Salesforce community, I'm known as the Salesforce Wizard, likely due to me wearing a wizard hat at Salesforce events.
And I'm known as Salesforce Yoda for pretty much the same reason.
You should see the ears.
We have a passion to help educate and entertain people.
So we've joined forces to create WizardCast.
We've got tips and best practices.
We talk with interesting people.
All mixed with quote-unquote jokes and humor.
Welcome to the WizardCast. What did the meditation teacher say to the businessman when teaching him meditation?
I don't know, Brian. What did the teacher say?
I want you to take deep, slow breaths, and then very slowly let go of your mobile phone.
And?
And that's the joke.
Was it?
Yeah. If you take a moment and think about it, you'll find it's funny.
Yeah, I have a feeling the audience will only get that one if they go back and listen again after the episode's over. Please send us your jokes. Please send us a joke by tweeting at WizardCast_pod or emailing WizardCast@thewizardnews.com.
So, Mark, you remember our episode with Mike Gerholdt? Yeah,
Yep.
He was talking about navigating your career, and he had this theory about 70s kids being either Star Wars or Smokey and the Bandit kids.
Oh, right. You were going to do some kind of a survey, right?
Yeah.
So what are the results on this very scientific, not at all ridiculous or ludicrous in any way, official survey?
Well, of the people who identified themselves as 70s kids, 10% were Smokey and the Bandit, 40% were Star Wars, 30% were both, and 20% identified as neither.
Well, I mean, that's close, but sounds like Mike's theory doesn't quite hold water.
Yeah, I'm more upset that only 44% of the 70s kids said that they listened to the episode with Mike. I mean, that's terrible.
Wait, so they answered the survey even though they didn't know
what we were talking about?
What we were talking about? Oh, that's the power of the internet, folks, right there.
There's just something generally wrong, Mark, that we are so unprepared and messed up for this interview. And we're interviewing Ashima on mindfulness.
I think it's actually beautiful. I think we should start recording now.
I did, because this is funny. Mark hasn't set up any of his equipment since Midwest Streaming.
Well,
I forgot to write your introduction.
We don't even see Mark.
We're 10 minutes in, and we haven't even introduced you, let alone kicked off the episode.
It's brilliant,
I would like
Brian.
to say, Ashima, that we are more professional normally, but that would be a distinct lie.
Well, I'm mad. I can't even do it seriously. Ah.
Our guest today is a friend of mine that I get to talk with every year at Dreamforce. Any other chance we have to see each other. We talk about some very interesting things, and I thought we'd want to talk about them here today. And I'm just going to give you her name and let her talk about herself. Welcome to Ashima Saigal.
Thank you. Yay. Oh, I got applause even?
Yeah.
Wow. Feels good.
So what is it that you do exactly?
What I do.
He said do.
What do I do?
What is it that you do?
What is do? So what do I do? I have my own business. I've been doing it since 2012. And it is a database consulting or implementation partner, but we guide nonprofits mostly. We work primarily with nonprofits through a journey and discovery with their data. So they learn how to use their data, understand their data better by building their own database. So we help them build their own Salesforce instance. We don't actually get in the instance. They do it all themselves. So the idea or the theory behind it is if they build their data, they understand all the nuanced kookiness of a system that they built.
I'm sorry, is
systems.
kookiness, is that a technical term?
It is.
I think I saw that on the admin test.
Yeah, it's the cuckoo beans thing, you know? It's like, why is that field there? What's that pick list value mean? I don't understand. Well, they do because they built it. So they are engaged in implementing their system. Thus, they're better able to build reports. Adoption is just better. It's a really fun way to build a system. So we're more coaches than we are actually implementers.
And
so that's what I do.
Right.
do for.
And it kind of segues into what we're talking about today, because you are coaching them on how to approach their system and how to approach their data. Instead of actually doing it for them. So it's basically teaching them a kind of mindfulness.
It is, Mark.
Their data, yes.
It is, absolutely.
There's the seed right there.
Yeah.
Isn't it a segue?
It's a good segue, because a lot of what we do is actually practicing that. Some of our, when you work with people, they get stressed out, they're overwhelmed, and they can't learn in that environment. You really can't build a system in that environment. So we do a lot of that practice. So we'll stop sometimes in the middle of work and say, look, something's bothering you and you're just not picking this up. What's going on? And so we end up doing a lot of that kind of human coaching with people and helping them get through whatever problems they're having at work or personally. And then they're better able to come back next time we get together and really dive in. Plus, we really develop a close relationship with our clients. So they become really partners, in a really strong way, a strong community of people who are very intentional about how they work with systems. So I think for us, that's really important.
This may sound crass. How do you get anything done that way? Because if you were doing that with me, I don't think the conversation of what's going on, what's wrong would ever stop. Because I'm a father of small kids, and I think like any parent of small kids, the disaster never stops. It just changes, right? So how do you balance with hey, we need to talk about what's going on, and actually doing stuff? And how is talking about what's going on, how does that relate to mindfulness?
So mindfulness is being present of what's happening in this moment, right? That's really what mindfulness is. It's not the practice of thinking about what's happening next or what happened in the past. It's like what's happening right now. So when our clients are stressed out in the moment, we cannot do anything with them. We know that. We're not going to try and push through or bowl through. We're also not going to say, look, we can't talk to you now. We're done. Because they're not resolving whatever it is that's happening. We have 2-hour phone calls with them every week. So we always get work done. There's just no way we wouldn't. I would say, if it happens, it's like maybe 20% of the time we get a client who's really stressed out. So we'll have a phone call, and you can just tell they're not picking up anything, or they're clearly not engaged in some way.
Oh yes.
Right? You know that feeling. And so you'll just say, like, I get a sense something's going on. Do you want to talk about it? And most people do. If you're willing to listen, then they're going to tell you what's going on. So you let them vent, you let them talk. And normally it's, that must be really hard. Do you want to take a break? Should we not just talk anymore today? Would you rather just deal with the stuff that's happening at work right now and talk next week? Or do you want to try and get some stuff done now and take your mind off of this? And sometimes they'll say, maybe 2 or 3 times we've had it where it's like, nope, we don't want to talk right now. I really can't. I just can't take on anything right now. Okay, great. Let's call it good. They had an opportunity to vent. Maybe I've given them some practices at this point. Like, it might help you because we've got some mindfulness practices on our blog and our website. So it's like, hey, here's one. Oh, databasesherpa.com. So, there they can go and actually download an MP3 of me walking them through a practice where they can write some notes afterwards. And they're always free to share with us anything that they want to share with us afterwards. But, it's just giving people space to be humans, because I think so often we forget when we're doing the work of this technology stuff that we really are human beings behind the scenes, and that we need to start treating each other with a little bit more compassion and understanding. So I know, Brian, it doesn't seem like, how are you guys getting any work done? But in a 6-month period, we can build a system with our clients, and they can learn how to do it themselves.
I'm letting Brian think on this for a moment, because he's got that look on his face. The hamster is just like
Spinning.
Going so hard. It's CrossFit hamster in that brain right now.
I'm pretty sure the hamster is doing sit-ups right now. It's got to work on its pecs.
It's leg day. What are you talking about?
That was last week, Mark. I mean, get it straight. Okay, so I'm really curious. You said you have an MP3 that walks your customers through things. What are you exactly walking them through?
Oh, well, that's just the mindfulness piece. I mean, we're walking them through one-on-one. So when I'm working with them on the systems.
Yeah, I know. I mean, what is the mindful? I mean, what is it? Is it just? Is it like, hey, here's a peaceful ocean and with the occasional annoying gulls screaming by, and maybe some light rumble of the thunders, and then some quiet voice does some ASMR things like, everything's okay, everything's fine, breathe in, breathe out. Now, if I was really smart, I would have my microphone switched so I had 2 left and right inputs, and I'd be driving everyone nuts by going left and right.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to submit Brian Kwong to the Academy.
Or heavy breathing, like Darth Vader. Breathe in. Breathe out. There you go.
See, I just had to avoid I was just had to not take my asthma medication for a couple of days, and we'll be
and you'll just be that.
We'll make millions.
So, okay, so the practice that I have on there, let's see if I can remember. I probably can't remember that specific one, but let me tell you a practice that I do pretty regularly when I go, like when Witness Success, they had me do a practice for the whole group. So it's really about feeling yourself in the space that you're in right now so that you have the capacity to recognize what your feelings are. Because most of the time, people are going around, they don't really know what they're upset about. They just are upset. And they react, right? So I have a stimulus. We know this. Stimulus and then a reaction. So what mindfulness's goal is trying to do is, in stimulus hits, you have gap of time so that you can react appropriately. So your prefrontal cortex can kick in, right? We don't want the animal part of our brain deciding everything. That's what makes us humans. We want this part of our brain doing the deciding. So what mindfulness is doing is it's the
audio
prefrontal
only.
cortex.
So
part.
yeah. So what part of your
Prefrontal
brain?
cortex. Sorry.
Okay.
The prefrontal cortex, the front part of our brain, not the animal part of our brain, the lower part of our brain. So the idea is with mindfulness, we create the ability to create a gap, a space of time that allows you to have the stimulus, to allow the gap, and then the reaction. Traditionally, what happens, stimulus comes in and we react instantly. You know, I get cut off in traffic.
Safe harbor.
That guy. Oop.
I'll bleep it. It's fine.
Okay. So, you know, that kind of stuff, that's an instantaneous reaction, right? The gap would be, oh my gosh, the guy cut me off. Take a breath in, take a breath out, whatever it is you need to do, and then say, jerk, or thank God I'm not dead, or whatever the reaction is that's a little less instantaneous, right? It could still be.
Safe harbor.
But you know, you're given the gap. You're given the gap. And that space is very important because I do mindfulness with kids, and I know you don't have the video. So it's called flipping your lid. When we flip our lid is when we disconnect our prefrontal cortex and the rest of our brain. So we actually live in the animal part of our brain when we flip our lid. When you get mad, when you get really sad, when you get really afraid, any of the emotions get intense for you, you flip your lid. You can't learn. The thinking part of your brain is gone. So I'll show you guys. That's what I do with the kids. You flip your lid. So kids will come to us like
Ashima's holding up basically four fingers with her thumb tucked in.
Yeah, this is the thumb is considered our amygdala, and then this is our prefrontal cortex. Normally we walk around like this.
Fingers over the thumb.
Over the amygdala, the thumb.
Like sign language.
Yeah.
Or a really bad, good way to break your fist in a fist fight.
Yeah. Bang. But what happens when you get really upset is your amygdala fires, and the connection between the rest of your brain and the prefrontal cortex breaks. And this is on the thumb.
Flipping
or the amygdala is the only thing that's firing.
And exposing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, exposing my thumb. And through breath, through turning on your parasympathetic system, which is what breath does, you actually are able to bring your prefrontal cortex back in, and you can start thinking again. So for kids, this is a really good visual because for them, they don't understand what's happening when they lose control. But when they can actually put it into a picture, they're better able to understand what's happening. So when we flip our lid, we can't literally, we cannot think. The thinking part of our brain is done. The only way to bring it back is to settle. And so by settling, mindfulness, breath work, body work, all these things help bring that back. And I'm not making this up. You can Google it. It's all scientifically proven. This is what happens. So what we realize at Database Sherpa is when someone's flipped their lid, right? They're not able to function and work and learn. The prefrontal cortex is not engaged. They can't think. They're upset about something that has happened to them. Whatever it is. I don't care what it is. It doesn't matter to me, but they're upset. And so my job is to either get the prefrontal cortex back in play by doing some practices. Like let's do some breathing practice. Let's just sit in a chair. Just sit in a chair. Don't look at the computer. Close your eyes and just listen to my voice. And I'm just going to say some words. And I'm just going to get you to feel your breath. And I'm just going to get you to feel yourself sitting in your chair, feeling the ground at your feet. So those kinds of practices help people engage their brain again so that they can make a better decision. Yes, I can work with you, Ashima, or no, I really can't. I'm just too upset. I need to get out of here.
So, I mean, that sounds very similar to meditation. Is there a difference between mindfulness and meditation?
There is. Meditation typically, and it depends on what type of meditation you're doing, but you're also trying to build awareness. There's a lot of why in meditation. So if let's say you're sitting and all of a sudden you realize that you're feeling very upset about something, you start digging deeper into the why am I feeling this way? Why am I feeling this way? Mindfulness is not that. Mindfulness is I feel this way. That's it. There's no why. There's no trying to unwrap it. There's no figuring out the bigger scheme of who I am as a person. It's just, I'm upset. I have an emotion. It's more observational. It's definitely more secular. So it's not religious at all. It's a very observational, scientific view of yourself. So it's kind of like you have to imagine I'm looking at myself and saying, wow, I'm really upset about something. Wow, that's totally, messing me up today, and I really can't function. And, maybe this is considered a day where I just don't do whatever, X, Y, Z. I'm not going to go grocery shopping because I don't want to be around a bunch of people. I don't want to go to a grocery store.
Because
so you
even
just sort of, yeah,
Go
go ahead, Mark.
even just the act of performing that analysis makes the brain, as you said, it re-engages the thoughtful parts of the brain. And so it prevents, it helps with stress, and it prevents
Correct.
us from acting out of turn.
See,
Correct.
if I was doing this, I would think every 5 minutes I'd be leaving the house to go fishing, and I would never get any work done. So I guess my point from this, and this is me going, not trying to be a complete jerk, but you're taking a gap, right? That's the goal, is just to give yourself a gap from the point of experience to reaction.
Correct.
Is there a restriction? Is there something to say, hey, this is the type of gap or the length of gap or goal of the gap? I mean, what's there to say to that? Hey, I just got this really nasty email, so I'm going to take the rest of the afternoon off.
That's just distracting yourself.
Okay.
Right.
So
there's no,
explain the difference.
So there's no gap analysis and how long it can be, but it's not just, I'm going to take the afternoon off. I got this really shitty ass email from someone that I really don't want to deal with right now, but I have to. And I need to I'm going to go grab some coffee, and I'm going to sit down, and I'm going to feel like the warm coffee in the cup in my hand. I'm not going to think about the email. I'm going to think about what I need for myself right now. And what happens is it's kind of like relaxing your body so that you're not intensely in that, whatever that moment is, enough so that your brain can do a little bit of processing. You may come back and say, I don't want, my response is, I don't want to deal with this email right now. I'm going to put it in my, deal with email later folder. And I'm going to put a little tickler in my calendar and remind myself of it. I'm not going to let it ruin my day. I'm not going to let it take away what I need to do for today. Or I can make the decision to say, this really hurt. This was very painful for me. I don't know what the email is, but it could have been a very painful email. And I can't do an email back. Like, I need to talk to this person, and they're maybe not around, and it's painful. I need to get out of here. I need to leave. So I'm going to take the day off, and so there's a very conscious act of what you're doing. I'm not just reacting and saying, I'm out of here, I'm gone. But I'm saying, look, this was painful to me. I'm dealing with the emotional state that I have, and I can't be in the space because it's uncomfortable. Some people would call toxic environment, so they need to get out of it. So I'm going to remove myself from that space for now. So I tell the people, and they need to know that I'm going home for the day. You don't necessarily need to tell them why, but you need to leave. That's your right. You need to take care of yourself. So that's what you do. I think just saying, I'm going to go, is distracting. It's not true to who you are and why you're doing it. And you need to understand that. And that's what the gap is allowing you to do. Right?
That makes sense. I will say that I'm disappointed. I was hoping for a rationalization to skip work and go fishing tomorrow. Because the weather's supposed to be very nice. And I have all my gear in the trunk. I really would like to have the excuse.
But there is a difference between self-care and taking a moment.
Absolutely.
And I think self-care is one thing, and it's also important. But taking a moment is more of the, like, what you were talking about, just go get a coffee, then come back and decide how to deal with this.
Absolutely.
Because you'll make a better decision.
Yep. And I think part of it too, Mark, is that it's realizing that something's triggered you, because most of the time you get an email like that has disturbed you, or something has happened that's disturbed you, and the immediate reaction is what you want to go with. Most people don't take a pause. And so the idea is take a pause and make a decision about which direction you want to head. Because it could be, like you said, self-care. I need to do something for myself right now. This was very painful. Or it could be a simple, I just need to respond to this email. Or maybe you reread it afterwards and you're like, oh, that's totally not what they were saying. I read into it wrong. So it's, especially in this day and age, and we were talking about this earlier, Brian, we're like in this Twitter quick response world, and we kind of expect that now. Like, I send an email and I expect an email response in a day. Well, maybe that's not going to happen. Maybe that person needs a little more time.
You take a whole day to respond to an email? 20 minutes max.
Oh yeah, they sit in my drafts sometimes for a week. Isn't that crazy?
That's how I handle my life insurance payments.
And then I read it again later, and I'm like, oh, I'm changing this. Or I read their email again, and I'm like, oh, wait, that's not what they meant. They were asking me this. So, yeah, I take my time. Not all emails, but some of them, the ones that are important.
So when we've gotten to hang out at Dreamforce and other events, it's always been great because, when we sit down and we talk, it's interesting. We're obviously there for Dreamforce, we're there for Salesforce, and we don't really talk about Salesforce. You and I, we talk about life.
Yeah.
We talk about our stressors. We talk about, how life is going and how our families are. And if we talk about work, it's in the context of how it fits into everything else. And it's interesting that, we have these philosophical discussions, you and I, and we bounce things off of each other. And I miss that we haven't gotten to do it last year. Like, I was so upset when I was like, oh, I didn't get to. So we're going to make time this year, I promise. But the reason I wanted to bring you on to the show specifically was to talk about how, about mindfulness, but also about how it can help people with stress specifically. Mm-hmm. We talked a little bit about that just now with the self-care and with taking a moment. Are there other practices? Because a lot of people, we work in a very high pressure environment. And I'm not saying me, I'm saying Salesforce, right? The ecosystem, sure. There's a lot going on. It's very fast. And we're usually in high pressure positions. What can we do as admins, as developers, people in this ecosystem to help deal with the things that we deal with? So
I think, and this is going to sound really weird, but I think key is...
You're on the right podcast for that.
Good. I'm glad you think so. Is really to take care of yourself. So it sounds counterintuitive, but the more you care for yourself, the more you can help others. And if you're an admin or a developer, your nature of work is helping others. So if you can care for yourself and you can give yourself what is called self-compassion, then you're better able to deal with the stressors of what's happening around you. And a lot of times we contextualize something incorrectly, right? So we think that something is actually a stressor when it isn't, or we enable it to be that way in our lives. And the reality is, unless you're a doctor saving somebody's life, and even there, the stress is high, or you're an air traffic control cop. These people who are dealing with all of these flights, and those are very, very high stress jobs. Our stressors in comparison to those are pretty minor. And I don't want to downplay how someone feels, because obviously if you're feeling stressed, that's how you're feeling. But it's important to take care of yourself in those moments. So when someone throws at you, hey, we need this entire new object created with all this other crap, and you're like, holy crap, wait a minute, I'm not ready for this. Or, hey, we need you to develop this in 3 days. And that's not possible. Obviously these are stressors that happen to people regularly. And it's because the someone who's asking you doesn't really understand what it takes to do something. So that's really where gaps are helpful. First of all, going, wow, I have to deal with someone who has no clue about what the reality of work is. And secondly, damn, that's harsh. I don't have time for this right now. So having conversations with people is vital. This is the part where I feel like we're just not doing enough of that, talking to each other. So someone asks you for something, instead of saying, oh my God, I can't do that, talk back to them and say, I think maybe you don't know what this takes, and I need to kind of show you maybe in an outline how long this is actually going to take me. 3 days is not, I can't do it. Or this object sounds like maybe we need to just retool campaigns or tasks, or, name your other thing. And I think that these gaps and treating each other like human beings and taking care of ourselves, like these are things that we don't bring to the workplace. And we kind of think, oh, this is just for my home time. This doesn't matter at work. Well, absolutely it matters at work because you spend so much of your time there and these are the people you hang out with. So take care of yourself, practice these moments of space for yourself, and then also treat the other person like they're a human being that you care about and you want to see be successful too. Because then the relationship shifts and you might actually find someone saying something to you like, oh, so I have this idea and I want to bounce it off of you before I tell you what I want you to do. Right? And all of a sudden the relationship shifts.
So does that mean you're against comfort food?
He says as he munches on some obviously snacky thing.
Wow. This is like a 4-day-old cookie and it's really stale.
I wouldn't call that comfort food, Brian.
It was when I bought it.
Now, if you had a big bowl of Ben & Jerry's ice cream, I'd be all about it.
Lactose intolerance.
Oh.
Ben & Jerry's makes a non-dairy now.
They could do, but I hear it's really bad.
It's not the same.
I know, I heard.
What? No, the Ben &
You like
Jerry's.
it, Mark? Really?
Their Cherry Garcia is great.
The non-dairy one.
The non-dairy Cherry Garcia is great. I
But,
really
of course, this is coming from a man who, in stress, won't care that he'll be putting different stress on his body in about 25 minutes after eating the ice cream, because it's so worth eating the ice cream right then.
By the non-dairy.
The non-dairy.
Screw the non-dairy. If I'm going to go, no. If I'm having ice cream, I'm having ice cream. Or the 2 donuts I had for breakfast, or the Wendy's I had for lunch, or...
There are different types of self-care, Brian. We might want to talk about the other kind.
No, comfort food is good. And I always tell people when they're like, I stress eat. I said, well, I think the better way to stress eat is to say, I'm going to stress eat right now a whole bag of Doritos.
You know, I think that's going to be my new T-shirt. Except for it's not going to be Doritos. It'll be like a baker's dozen of donuts.
You should say it, like verbalize that that's why you're doing what you're doing. It starts to get your brain. You're doing it with conscious effort. You're not doing it by just bashing food in your face. And eventually it will start shifting. You will be surprised at how the awareness starts to get you to go, you know what, maybe I just want a donut. Okay, maybe not a dozen, maybe 2. Okay, maybe not, and it starts to shift. So it happens. I mean, I've got tons of stories if you want to hear about me.
All I know is if you do make those shirts, just don't make them any size less than large.
No, it'll be extra large, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, they got to fit me. Soon to be at our new merch store. Thank you for that segue. That's like perfect. Where you can get I'm a Full
What's your website?
Links are at thewizardnews.com.
There you go.
And in the show notes.
Yeah, so self-compassion is a big thing that I've been spending a lot of time learning. And
I don't think I'm very good at that. I think I need to be better at that.
Yeah, and it starts with not saying that, Mark.
Is it the first step is admitting you have a problem?
The first step is not beating yourself up.
That's the irony. I'm actually beating myself up for not being compassionate.
That's enough. Right. That's
wow.
right.
Wow.
Isn't that
if it
amazing?
helps, wait. Would it make a difference if I beat Mark up for not being compassionate enough?
No. That would not help either.
Oh.
But it's really hard, Mark. I think your example is perfect because we never think we do anything right? Like, I mean, we're always beating ourselves up over what we don't do right.
But again.
I know. And our brains are wired for that. They're like completely and utterly wired to beat ourselves up. So for every negative thought you have, you need to have 10 positive comments to make. And it's not the Stuart Smalley, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough.
And gosh darn it, people like
me. No. That's not.
You laugh, but I had that on Post-it notes in the mirror when I was in high school.
I think it's fantastic, but that's not the same as self-compassion. So self-compassion is the idea that you're showing yourself kindness, but it's an active kind of kindness. So here's an example. When you are going through a difficult time, like let's say, we'll use Brian, you got 3 small kids. So your kid is like screaming and you can't get them to stop, and you're in a restaurant or you're somewhere public and you're like, I'm losing it.
That's every 20 minutes.
So instead of dealing with your child, which you have no control over, right? You know this, right? As small kids, we have no control over these little beasts.
That's what the shock collars are for. Why does everyone laugh when I say that? You
got to cut that out, because if they hear that, like those people who listen to things and then say who's hurting their child, like your kids are getting taken away from you, dude. So cut that.
Vacation.
I'm not sure if I should edit this out or not.
No, he's like, don't edit it out. Leave it in. It's awesome. So the idea is when your child is having a meltdown is not to spend a ton of energy on them when you're stressed out about it. When it's bothering you, when you're like all the eyes are on you and every parent out there is judging you. The idea is to take that care that you would normally give your child or try to stop them and give it to yourself. So this is really hard, Brian. Having my child, you would say this to yourself. I'll do it for me. So if my daughter's screaming in the restaurant, this is really hard, Ashima. It's not easy. I know everybody's judging me and it's really uncomfortable. And I'm really upset at this. And you start to really comfort yourself. And what inevitably happens with kids, because kids pick up on energy very quickly, they'll notice that you're shifting your attention away from them to yourself. And kids don't like that so much. So, parenting tip. They'll all of a sudden be looking at you like, hello, I'm having a meltdown. Why are you not paying attention to me? And then all of a sudden they're not having a meltdown anymore. And it's all because you shifted your attention to yourself. So that's the first step.
Meltdown.
Never acknowledge the meltdown. But second to that is take care of yourself, because you are stressed out, likely, unless you're like a really bizarro parent that I've never met.
That's what the alcohol's for.
But most parents usually, when a child is having a meltdown, they're freaking out because everyone's looking at them and they're like, oh my God, and, So focus on yourself, focus on the inner part of you. So that's the first step. The second step is know you're not alone, that we are sharing this common humanity, right? We all, if we have kids, this happens.
Yep, that's why you go to family restaurants. Because you're not the only parent there. And
Totally.
No, I'm serious. You can tell which people have had kids and who haven't. Because all the ones who had kids are laughing their butts off.
I've been there, and they're high-fiving each other, like,
it's done, it's over with. Or the occasional, those poor...
Safe harbor.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I know how that feels, son of a gun. So, there's that shared humanity. That's part of self-compassion. You're never alone, because when you feel isolated, when you're like, oh my gosh, I'm the only one that thinks this way, or I'm the only one that is this way, isolation happens. And that's a very, very bad thing for us mammals. Like, we need pack and feeling like we fit in and we belong, and that's just how we are. And then the third piece of self-compassion is mindfulness, because you have to recognize first that this is happening to me. Most of the times we react when something as bad is happening, we immediately react. Our kids acting up, we're like, stop it, right? Like, immediate reaction. Instead of just saying, okay, this is really hard for me. My child's having a meltdown. I cannot control what they do. I can only control my reaction. I need to settle myself. This is something that all people deal with. This is not something that I am the only one that deals with. And you start to feel better. You start to feel like you're not alone. You start to feel like, you're caring for yourself, an active type of kindness. And then you're also feeling like, I had some control over my reaction. I didn't just go cold cock my kid and get arrested.
On that note.
I'm laughing because if you've been in our household today, not that I cold cocked my kid, but
Okay.
Just letting
I had-
Child
I had-
Protective Services know he did
Yeah.
not cold cock his child.
I had, well, despite the fact she has no two front teeth, it wasn't for me. I had one kid who basically tantrum from the moment she came into the door, into the house from daycare, and slammed her door. And this was I've lost track how many times they've slammed her door. And they got a warning that if you slam your door again, you're losing your door. So she lost her door.
She lost her door.
Yes.
Nice.
Which was
That's
not fun
brilliant.
for Dad, who's
No,
having a bad
who had to take
arthritis
it-
day. And
Oh man.
and those doors I thought were hollow. Turned out they're still really heavy.
Wow.
So yeah, she lost her door and she spent the entire time screaming until it was bedtime.
Mhm.
You know, and my other son, meanwhile, is doing a Picasso on the wall with a pencil.
Nice.
So
Yeah. So you're really important in this.
it's more I'm
Brian.
just dead inside.
No.
So that's like that's how I deal with it. You know, I joke with I joke with the drinking. I don't drink, and I just go. I numb
you just
out.
go. Yeah, you numb out. Right.
I numb out.
That's a tactic. That's definitely, depression is also, I don't mean a tactic as in like a conscious tactic. It is a way that we deal with stressors in our lives. Numbing out through alcohol is another way. And this is one of the things that when I was a
You
witness
should try
success.
that one. Brian.
Yeah.
As a person with Asian flesh, trying to numb out with alcohol would be a bad choice.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, so witness success, I did a self-compassion and mindfulness workshop, and we talked a lot about, this is something that women say a lot. They'll say, I came home and I had mommy juice, and it's wine. It's drinking to numb out your kids. And I always counter that with, instead of doing that, do some self-compassion. So get yourself out of the space that you're in with that kid that's driving you bonkers. Go in your room, close the door. Don't slam it, Brian. Just close the door.
Then she would lose the door. I mean, soon there's going to be no interior doors in this house.
No doors.
And then they're going to start
none.
slamming the exterior doors, and soon you can just walk right in.
The open floor plan.
I mean,
Bugs, bunnies,
escalation.
deer. Everything's going to be in your house.
We've had bunnies in this house. It's
Aw.
nothing like waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning thinking your cat caught a really big rat and to find out it's a small baby bunny.
Oh.
And then
Nice.
wonder how did your indoor only cat get a baby bunny in the house?
Huh. How did that happen? Did your kids let the cat out?
The door blew open the one night that I didn't paranoid go make sure that the front door was locked, because we never use the front door almost. Like only when like someone comes and rings the doorbell. And we had a storm, door wasn't latched, blew wide open, cat went out, caught a rabbit, came in, gave it to me at 5:30 in the morning. And I tell you what, people think the alarm clocks are fun. Waking up at 5:30 in the morning to a live rabbit running around your bedroom really
Way
wakes
more
you up
fun.
quickly. Yeah.
And did you get it out of your bedroom? I hope.
That's in there someplace. It's been 3 years, but no, yeah.
Hopping around the ceiling.
It took me 20 minutes, but yeah.
At 5 a.m, and then you crashed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's and I do this a lot with my daughter. I'm like, you know what? I can't take no more of you at this point. I need to get away from you. Because if I don't, I'm going to probably throw you through that glass plate window. So I'm out of here, and don't bother me. And I head up to my room and I close the door and I practice sitting with my anger. Why am I so
Safe harbor.
at my kid? All of the things that I'm beating myself up over. And then I let myself be, and I don't try and change any of it. And I let it all come out. And then I'm ready again. And I go back. And what's beautiful about this, you guys, is that she does the same thing. So she's like, I've had enough of you, Mom. I'm out of here. She goes up in her room, and I don't go chasing after her. She does not slam the door, because we've talked a lot about that. I haven't actually taken it
They
off
won't be
the
slamming the door either.
because it's not there anymore. I managed to keep it on, but I just said, look, you can close your door, but you can't slam it. Like, I don't mind if you close it, just don't slam it. So she closes the door and she goes in there and does her, whatever, screaming, yelling, throwing things around her room, just mad. And then she's done and she comes back out and she might talk to me or she might not, it's up to her. But I think that sort of will give yourself space to be able to release whatever it is you're pissed about or you're dealing with or whatever. That's really important. And we all need to give that to each other. Like, I just sense, Brian, you want to just get the hell out of here and scream somewhere.
I would really like to get out of here and just go fishing uninterruptedly for about a day in a nice shady spot when it's not too hot.
And maybe you could scream out
Maybe
there.
actually catch something.
Not when you're.
No, because that will scare the fish.
Yeah, they'll go away. I don't know
Scream
what
when you catch the fish.
Oh yeah.
You darn fish! Why did it take you so long to take that bait? It was in there for 3 minutes.
Actually, you want them to take a long time, right? Because you just want to hang out there all day.
Oh, it depends on the type of fish I'm doing.
Oh, okay. So if you're going for salmon, you want them to bite quick, right?
Well, if I'm casting, it'd be nice to catch something every few casts. But if I'm bobber fishing, 10, 15 minutes is fine. Just sit there, zen out.
Yeah. Yeah.
As long as it's, it's not too hot or the sun's not beating down on you, it's great.
Right. Yeah, and there's so many places where you can practice that, creating yourself space for yourself. And not the idea is not to be mindless. Like, you want to be active in your practice, but recognizing what's happening. Like, yeah, I'm sitting here and I'm noticing the sun hitting me, or wow, a cloud just went and I noticed the shading in the water. And you just kind of are noticing everything around you versus sitting there and staring at the bobber and like zoning out entirely, or thinking about 500 million other things that you got to do, or, oh, I got to deal with this when I get back, or that when I get back, and create all these lists in your head. That's the mindless way of being. The mindful way of being is recognizing everything around you and really honoring everything around you, not ignoring it. And that's hard.
I've got similar practice for that. My best way of doing self-care and taking care of myself is sitting down with certain games. Some games are not great for it, but some are just like, they're good at giving you something to do that doesn't take a whole lot of thought, but it's just enough thought, just enough strategy, just enough planning so that you are engaged, you're observing, you're interacting.
Mm-hmm.
And not just completely zoning out, but still it's a much lower impact.
Right. I think about chess as being a really good game. It's a very strategic game. You have to be very aware of what your opponent is doing. You'll be thinking about your own steps and where you're headed.
I was talking about Diablo, but okay, chess is good too.
Yeah, I think all gaming is really, and I don't know about computer gaming, but I think board gaming more so. Because there's way more involved with your brain and engaging with what's happening around you and your surroundings. You can't really fall asleep in it.
I think it depends on the video game you're playing.
I don't play very many video games, and most of the ones that my daughter wants me to play with her are just mindless, stupid.
See, the ones that I really like to play are the ones that I have to really focus. I have to pay attention.
Right.
You like a lot of strategy.
I like the strategy. I like the simulation games, and then every now and then I'll play something mind-numbing where you do a little bit of work and otherwise you're just waiting and watching to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I feel like that though we need to sharpen our ability to observe and to sit back and observe not just what's happening around us but ourselves more. And we tend not to spend a lot of time doing that. And so we numb ourselves out with alcohol, with eating, with all kinds of things. Facebook, I think social media is probably one of the bane of my existence and my personal life, because it's like it can just suck you in.
And it's always there.
It's always there. And you spend a oodles amount of time on it. And it's like, what did I just do? Like, where was I for the last hour? I don't even know. And that kind of senseless, mindless work that we end up doing can just eat up a lot of your day.
Well, here's the thing. Like, it is, it's, obviously Brian now understands what I already knew, that, when we're talking with Ashima, we could just keep going and going and going and going and going and going. But we are kind of running out of time. So
I was going to ask, can you give us a beginner's primer? So for the listeners out there who are maybe just getting started, can you give them a handful of things that if they want to start trying to be more mindful, how should they start?
So I think easily start with sitting in a quiet space, maybe after you get up first thing in the morning. It doesn't have to be anything long. Sit for, 3 breaths. And what I mean by that is noticing the breath going in and out. So when you wake up in the morning, all you have to do is sit in, the edge of your bed, maybe plant your feet on the ground if you can, and just feel the breath going in your nostrils and out of your nostrils 3 times. Slowly, not, you don't want to hyperventilate. You just woke up. So nice and slow, even breaths in and out 3 times. All this is doing is setting your brain up for those pauses. So these pauses that you want to start doing periodically. So then when a trigger happens, so just the reason I'm saying start in the morning is because your brain's usually fresh in the morning. When you start getting triggered, do the exact same thing. It doesn't matter what the trigger is. It could be someone cutting you off in traffic. It could be someone bugging you in the line at the grocery store. It could be your kids screaming. Do those same 3 slow, even breaths. And you will notice that things start to shift for you. It won't take long. I'm guessing within 3 or 4 days, you'll notice a change in your behavior. And it will be minor things. You may not notice it. Someone might point it out to you. Someone close to you will likely point it out to you. But it can be just a simple thing like that. If you start doing that practice regularly, when you catch yourself in a bad situation, you're mad, and you can say, oh yeah, those 3 breaths, and you do those nice, long 3 breaths, you'll start to see shifts happening. But you have to start with a practice. It's like you have to build something. So that's usually what I tell people to start with, something simple. And then if you like that, you're like, oh, this actually works. Then you can start going, okay, I'm going to go longer. So I'm going to carve out 5 minutes a day, and I'm just going to sit in a room that's relatively quiet, and I'm just going to quietly practice focusing on my breath. And then after a while, you're going to go, okay, I'm tired of focusing on my breath. This is kind of boring. And then you can start focusing on sounds around you, not labeling anything, but just listening for sounds, like let them come to you kind of thing. And then you might get bored with that. And then you can sort of focus on body. So, my back. I notice that I'm getting twinges. Okay. And my feet are falling asleep. I'm feeling the tingling pins. My fingers are numb. Just all the things you might notice. 5 minutes. Do it every day. You'll start to see shifts. It doesn't take much to build this resilience, this ability to create space.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ashima, for coming on. I really appreciate, frankly, I needed to hear a little bit of this too, but I'm sure a lot of other people did. So thank you for sharing. Is there anything else, any other, since you have our platform, and
our mother's listening.
Our mother's listening.
Oh.
Anything that you want to share?
Well, first of all, moms, you have great sons, which is a testament to your raising boys, which is awesome. So I'll give you a book that I think is awesome. Self-Compassion by Kristin Neff. She's a PhD. It's KRISTINNEFF. She is a fantastic, amazing doctorate who has written and has studied self-compassion for decades and has some really, really great tips on how to bring it into your life. She has a website that has some free downloads. She's I think the world of her and what she's doing, trying to change the world through self-compassion, is not an easy task.
Yeah, we'll put a link to the book in the show notes.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, other than that, I think the only thing that I want to say to everybody is to be kind to yourself and to know that there's nothing that you need to change about yourself, that you're perfect just as you are, and that start to learn to care and love yourself a little bit more.
There was one other thing I wanted to actually ask you real quick.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a show or heard of a show called Steven Universe?
Steve and the Universe. No, I haven't.
Steven Universe.
No. Steven Universe? Nope.
Okay. It's a kids show. It's a cartoon.
Oh.
But my 6-year-old daughter is probably designed for probably about, 8 to 12. My 6-year-old daughter has been watching it and loving it, obsessed with it. And it largely focuses on relationships, like the idea of, a kid who has this kind of surrogate family that turns out that are aliens from outer space. It turns out he's half alien, and it gets really involved. Like the plot's really involved and cool. But it's also about how he interacts with people and their emotions. And they actually do one episode, which is basically mindfulness training.
Oh, wow.
The entire episode it's setting up this idea that, one of his friends like accidentally hurt somebody in school, like an accidental self-defense. And so they can't fight well together. Mm-hmm. And so they have to get taught this idea of like, take a moment, center and, don't focus on the negative. And like, it's basically one big long episode on mindfulness training. It's
interesting.
Yeah.
And is it on Netflix?
No. Well, it's on Hulu. It's on Hulu.
Okay, Hulu. Okay. Cool.
I'll admit the first season is a little slow. If you do
even for a kid?
Oh, for a kid, no, the first season is fine because it's like it's just there's a lot of bottle episodes.
Okay.
But they all set up things that become like integral to major plot reveals later on.
Okay. Okay.
So you
got to watch them all. Yeah.
Yeah. But our family is literally kind of obsessed with this right now. Like this, it has a lot of music, a lot of songs.
Mm-hmm. So you sing them all?
Yeah, we do. We sing them all together, listening to in the car. They get stuck in my wife's head. I hear her humming them. Like
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Have you guys either watched Brain Games on
National
Geographic?
Games.
No.
Yeah.
I don't have cable, so.
Oh. Well, it's
I think they're on. It's either on Amazon or Netflix. One of the two.
I know I can watch it on Netflix. It's on Netflix, on Amazon. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I have Amazon. Both, so I love Brain Games. The whole the different perspective things, and
I'll check.
So they have one on compassion. I think it's season 4, episode 1, and that and so you can really watch that and see how we are wired for compassion. It's fascinating to me. They have a video where they show babies. They do experiments, so they're showing you a lot of different experiments, and they have these babies, and they're looking at these little stuffed animals, and a little cat is trying to open a box, and there's one stuffed animal that doesn't help the cat and one stuffed animal that does. And then they give the babies a choice. Which stuffed animal do you want? And they always, most of the time, they take the stuffed animal that was kind. So, like, these are babies that are pre-verbal. They're already wired for compassion. Like, they're already looking for who's kind. And I think that's amazing. Like, we're seeing so much more now that this is not something that is taught or learned. It's something that we're innately born with, and we either encourage that behavior or we discourage that behavior. So, and Kristen Neff talks a lot about self-compassion versus self-esteem. Self-esteem is reliant on the other person being worse than you, because self-esteem is all about pumping ourselves up to be better, versus self-compassion, which is not comparing myself to someone else, but realizing that I'm suffering just like they are. So there's just, I really love Brain Games. It's one of my favorite shows. So there's this.
Yep, that's episode 1, season 4.
Yes. It's that compassion one is amazing. And the very last of the video they show is the experiment they do is a chili experiment, which just when I showed it at Witness Success, everyone was like, "Oh my God!" And I said, I showed this to middle schoolers. We watched Brain Games together, and that video they replicated in Zola's school, because they're not the exact experiment, but they wanted to see if it was true, and it was for them. So they're like, when they re-experimented the experiment, they were like, Miss Ashima, it actually worked. Like, people were more compassionate when you're nicer to people. Like, it worked. I'm like, yeah, well, they wouldn't have shown it on Brain Games if it didn't work, but I'm glad you checked it out for yourselves. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, I really like Brain Games. I think they do a good job of explaining how our brain can fool us at times.
So, got anything else to mention today, Mark?
Oh, just a little something I've been working on.
Yeah?
Yeah, I actually have a little clip to play here. I did spend a little of my own money out of my pocket hiring a consultant to make it really pop. I can't contractually say his name in a public recording, but let's just say it rhymes with Schmeichel Fay.
Ooh, okay. Well, let's roll the clip.
In a world where dangerous threats loom on all sides, where one roll of the dice can affect the fate of the whole world, where fantasy becomes reality, one man, more of a man-child, really? I mean, this whole thing is about a game, right? Just a game, and have you seen his face? It's like he grew his baby fat back.
Ben!
One man will lead a team of trailblazers in a storytelling epic adventure for the ages, on a quest to raise money for Pepup Tech and to vanquish the forces of evil. On September 8th, 15th, and 22nd, you'll find them at 8:30 p.m. Central Time on twitch.tv/Salesforce Yoda. On September 22nd, you'll find them live at Dreamforce at 4 p.m. Pacific Time in the Hilton Union Square, Continental Ballroom 7. All donations will go 100% to Pepup Tech and can be used to help or hurt the players. Join John Graff, Squire Kirshner, Brian Kwong, Rebe De La Paz, Samantha Safin, and Game Master Mark Ross for Dungeons and Dreamforce Winter 19 Edition. Wait a second. Winter 19? But this is 2018.
I know. Look, we're lining up with the whole Salesforce release schedule thing, and they call it a Winter 19.
Well, you'd better start doing this 3 times a year then.
I'll think about it.
Okay, well, that's something. Anyways, we also want to mention with Dreamforce around the corner that you can find both Mark and I presenting this year.
That's right. I'll be doing a session twice called Amplify Your User Experience with Lightning and Flow. It's basically Lightning and Flow together to
Very
amplify your users and how they experience. Look, just come to the session, okay?
And that's why he has 2, because people are so confused that they're signing up to see it just to figure out what the heck Mark is talking
come back.
about.
Yeah, to make sense of it the second time. Yeah.
And I'm going to be in the admin theater presenting on an admin's guide to better reports and dashboards. It's really a focus on how to ask the right questions to get the reports your organization actually needs, not just want. WizardCast is produced by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, directed by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, technical administration by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, script writing by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, audio editing by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, website maintenance by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross. Special thanks to Ben Ballypugh for recording the D and DF promo, and our intern this episode was Geoff Fullam.
You can be an intern too. Just follow us at WizardCast_pod on Twitter.
Or just come up to us during events like Dreamforce and tweet about us so we can remember to add you to our list.
Send us your interview suggestions, jokes, videos, tips, and feedback to wizardcast@thewizardnews.com or head over to thewizardnews.com and click Contact WizardCast.
And we need to hear from you. If you could ask Parker Harris one question, what would it be?
Submit your question by going to bit.ly/ParkerQuestions, all lowercase, and fill out our short form.
And soon we're going to be doing another idea exchange highlight. So we want to know, what ideas do you want other people to know about, or that you just want to hear us talk about?
Go to bit.ly/idea highlight, all lowercase, to submit an idea to us.
Don't forget to subscribe to the WizardCast and receive our next episode automagically.
Please post reviews on Apple Podcasts, aka iTunes, and share this episode. It helps others to hear what you just had to endure.
Once again, I'm Brian.
And I'm not sure why, but my consultant said I should press down on this lever when we were getting ready to end the episode, so...
Ow, my ears. Thanks for listening.
I'm going to do one last run. I'll be back in a few minutes. I apologize. My gastrointestinal system is not a fan of being on time.
See, what you don't know, Ashima, is Mark can barely stomach me. and every time we do the podcast,
So I can come back.
he pretty much has to go and expunge himself in order to tolerate this. It's a sad state.
That.
It's a sad state. It really, really is. And I've tried everything. Like, I've gotten him Tums. You know, I have a whole bottle of Tums here just for him. He always refuses, saying something, Brian, you're not in the same room as I am. I mean, it's
you try
ridiculous.
to pass it through. It doesn't work, right? Like, I can't quite get it to him.
I'm a gracious host. I try to offer it to my co-host, but for whatever reason, he refuses. And we do this every episode. Now, why he waits until after the guest is on is beyond me.